We're live.
We're live.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Good. I like that because it doesn't show up on my end that we're live,
We're live. We are live.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Elliott Brecht with Team Cheeky. I'm here with Alejandra, Lisa, and Sarah. And we're going to go over a few of the sort of things that we overcame personally and how these can help you and some of the strategies and mindset you have to do as you are going through the struggles of your job search, you know, now and just in general, because there's these sort of things will always last throughout whatever sort of job search you're doing and however you're going through. And especially now, people are getting more frustrated than they would in different times. So just to go through, has there been anything, and we'll go over generally maybe some of like what you initially did and sort of how you had to change your mindset. And how about start off with you, Lisa? What were some of the things that you personally had to do to wrap your mind around, you know, these personal struggles as you were doing your job search?
Thank you, Elliott. So the job search in general is it's a hard process. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot to get used to. There's a lot to adapt to. There's a lot of shifting. So as an academic, there are differences from an academic institution, the culture in academia versus the culture that is in industry, and learning those differences and adapting to those differences. It's a hard thing. It's a struggle. So when I was going through my job search, it's really easy to get caught up in the no's or the rejections or the imposter syndrome. We all have experience with imposter syndrome in some form or another. So the important thing I think is to focus on incorporating things in your day that are like positives, right? Because we want to make sure that we have the internal narrative. And we've had a guest on a radio show last year, I think it was. It was a really great show. But anyway, I'll have to think about which one it is and share it in the comments below. But the important thing is to maintain an internal narrative, so that way you're talking to yourself in a positive way. Because if you're talking to yourself in a way that is negative, like I don't have any value to add, I don't have any results, I haven't done anything, I haven't accomplished anything, I don't have any first author publications, or I only have a couple first author whatever your internal narrative is, it's important to make an active effort to talk to yourself in a way that is with a positive perspective, right? Instead of focusing on I don't have enough first author publications, focus on I have lots of collaborations that resulted in different publications, or I've helped multiple people doing this. I mean, whatever it is that you've accomplished, you have accomplished a lot of things. I guarantee you, as a PhD in your pursuits as a person, you have accomplished a lot of things. So just make sure that you focus on what you personally have accomplished and keep those things in mind and make an active effort. It's not easy. It's hard. I understand. I've gone through things in my own life, both professional, job search related and otherwise. It is hard to talk to yourself in a positive way if you're not used to doing that. But the more of an active effort you make to talk to yourself in a positive way, the easier it's going to be for you to talk to others about yourself and your accomplishments. Because when you're going through interviews and networking and informational interviews, which is mostly virtual right now, but I mean, it's the same as true if you're in person. When you're talking to people about why they should be interested in you as a job search candidate, if they want to hire you, if you don't think of yourself in a positive light, they're not going to see you in a positive light either, right? You have to see yourself that way before others will see you that way. No, so that would be my suggestion. Sorry?
No, yeah, most definitely. Because I guess we always go over and we focus when we're looking at a job advert, you're like, oh, I have these things, but I'm missing this and I'm missing that and I don't have this, and like those things, and you start focusing on all of those, you know, those deficits that you have and those negatives, and they're easy to usually see because, you know, as a PhD, you have this intelligence of knowing there's so much more that you don't know, and you need to focus on those things that are already good, because unfortunately, you know, someone who doesn't have that PhD background and that knowledge, they think, oh, I know everything, I know all the stuff in there. But as a PhD, we realize that there's so much out there that we don't know and that we are looking to try and go through. But that's the thing, is you have to then go through and sort of get yourself shifted around. Like, I already know these things. I can learn other stuff. I can know so much more, and really turn that around. And you just have to like internalize it, as you're saying, like give yourself this sort of positive affirmations and be like, I have these skills. I have these abilities. I can excel at what I'm doing. And Alejandra, is there anything else that you'd like to sort of try and add, that some of these other mind shifts that you had to try and go around, and the frustrations that you personally had to go through and do? Because I know you did your interviews basically virtually as well, looking for jobs all over the place as well.
Yes, Elliot, that's true. I've only ever interviewed like virtually for most of my clients. And well, one of the I was lucky enough to land my first client right after grad school, but one of the things that gave me most frustration was to set up all this job search strategy when I was still in grad school and still writing my thesis and still dealing with all this overwhelming pressure of, at this day it's my dissertation, which is great, and this day is the day I'm going to be unemployed, which sucks. And what really helped me was to create a plan. Like, I had everything planned. My last year of grad school, I was like, experiment writing, blah blah blah, like working on professional development, searching for clients, connecting on LinkedIn, blah, doing exercise, yoga, sleep. that was for me. It was the best way of keeping organized and just having this strategy, and also breaking down the process in small steps, because that's the thing. You want to get hired, and it's easy to portray yourself as having this job, and then sometimes we lose focus on the small wins and the small steps that you have to do. So that was something I created, like a reward system, and it was like, I had an amazing information interview. It's not a client, they won't pay me yet, but I had an amazing information interview, and that's great. Or I ended up my week with 50 new connections on LinkedIn. And like celebrating those small victories and having a plan helped me understand the small steps and reward me, even though I didn't have my great goal. And when I look back, I understood also that everything that I achieved could only be possible because I've done all those small steps. So they weren't that small after all.
No, that's a really good point, because, and again, like as a PhD, we like to go through and like write out all the details, and we make a plan. Like, we've gotten scheduled out, like, this is how I'm going to work through and get my dissertation read out. These are the experiments I'm going to do. This is the process I'm going to go about doing these. And like, we're good at doing these. We write out all the methods for the experiments we're going to be performing, how we're going to go and collect all the data, what the timeline is for these things, and then just sort of shifting that into the job search strategy and realizing that each sort of tick mark you go off is a step in that, in the completion of getting you your job. And so you just need to go and not think about like, oh, I should have done more. I could have done, more informational interviews. I could have done more connections. I could have done this. No, you want to think about the things that you have done and how, like, you are making strides towards that final goal, because of each thing that you're doing is actually going to turn that around and eventually going to lead you to your job, which we've already all thankfully accomplished and done. And it's because of having done these mind shifts and switching around like that. Sarah, I know that you recently just got hired, not too long ago, within basically this interesting times that we're at, and how you had to go over, and what were some of the, the strategies that you had to overcome, and the frustrations that you initially saw that you were able to, build yourself past so that you could get hired?
Yeah, so I will say that onboarding completely virtually with a new company is a very strange thing. But I've been at my new role for a couple weeks, and so I literally did my first, I submitted my application a week before Massachusetts's stay-at-home order. So I've done the entire process completely virtually. But one of my biggest challenges during this time was also something that was a problem before, in that one of the big things for me was accountability, and not procrastinating. Procrastination is in of itself an anxious behavior. So when we're stressed about something, we tend to put it off. And it's so easy to put off something when there's no deadline, right? Like, or it's a very loose deadline. So you don't do it because because it's stressful and you don't want to think about it. And that got worse during the COVID-19 pandemic because I was almost done at my PhD position, and we had some financial concerns regarding the pandemic, and I still didn't have a job yet. So one of the big things for me was really setting up, and it can be somebody else and like that, somebody else in your program, that you have things you're supposed to do every week or something, and that you check in with them and make sure it gets done, because it's so easy to put off this stuff when everything else is going on, especially right now and you're home and there's Netflix. So like, it's really important to make sure for me at least, it was really important to make sure there was some sort of accountability so that I could meet milestones, because without that, I was sort of like, well, I'll do it later. And then I didn't at all. So that was one of the big struggles for me, right? Especially right now when you're home and you're working from home completely.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I can go through, and I had all these similar struggles as well while trying to get, my first industry position. I went over and kept focusing on like, I'm pigeonholed in here, like I can only do these things. And I'm missing all these other skills that these other companies, want and need. And then I wasn't networking. I wasn't like actually looking at the positive aspects of like my resume or of my connections, of my network, all, going over. And then after going over and getting rejected from like the first job I interviewed at, I just sort of like got placate and was just like, I'm, going to sit here and I'm, upset and frustrated and sad. And I guess I'm just going to, be a postdoc forever because I can't get hired, and start, focusing on that mentally and not going over and thinking about all the other things that I could do. And so I had to go through personally as well and shift myself around and stop thinking about the negative aspects of my resume and start thinking about the positive things, asking companies I was, interviewing with, or at least getting to talk to the, HR, like, what is it that's good about my resume, and like being able to go over and get those positive feedback things there to like really help myself feel better going over. And like Alejandra said, going through, and each time I went over and started just doing more and more informational interviews and networking, and then realizing like, oh my gosh, like I've got, thousands of people now that I'm connected with, and I've done informational interviews with so many of them. And like, this is great. My professional network is actually growing, and thinking about the positive aspects of that, because these are connections with people that, even though I'm not in that, that sector anymore, I still talk to and I still connected with, because these are connections that are going to help, down the road at some time, knowing I'm having all these other people, both like in industry and within the cheeky scientist and within the association. Like I have like all of these, associate members and these other people that I know that have also made the transition that I connected with, and, being able to feed off of each other and being able to like look at all those positive aspects. It's just a really great way of, shifting ourselves around to look at those positive things and really feel good about our standing and our ability. And that was really what helped me, as a PhD as well. And hopefully that can help everybody else out there. And before we go over and finish up, and Lisa's going to post some of those links if we can find them in the comments below, because we've got lots of material in there. Does anyone have any sort of final thoughts on any of those other sort of frustrations that they really had to overcome, but we're really struggling with, before we say bye to everybody? I would say, I'm not sure, Lisa, Alejandra, Sarah, is there any sort of final comments you'd like to make with anybody?
No, I just wanted to add how everything goes, like they are all connected, because you have to switch the mindset and see yourself as a positive. Then you have to understand which are your goals and determine them like weekly. And having an accountability body, as Sarah says, helps a lot in terms of keeping your check of those goals. So just don't think of it as which one I like the most. They go together.
No, very true. It's a whole package of, that mind shift and overcoming those frustrations and the whole way. And that's why, the association is great, because you've got sort of a built-in network of accountability buddies, so we can all go over and help each other out and do these things. So it really is a wonderful thing. And so again, want to, thank everybody for joining us, and, remember your value as a PhD and keep thinking and acting like an industry professional. Thanks, everybody.